Okay, I need you to picture this. You're mowing your lawn, minding your own business, when you spot something in the grass. A bone. And then another one. And another. For 5 whole years. What would you do? Most people would probably just toss them out and move on. But this guy? This guy had a plan. And honestly, it might be one of the most satisfying petty revenge stories I have ever come across on Reddit. So let's get into it. Our narrator lives in a fenced backyard. Nice, private, contained. And every couple of months, while cutting his grass, he keeps finding these little chunks of bones scattered around. The kind you'd give a dog to chew on. Now his yard is fenced in, so these things aren't just blowing in from the street. Somebody is putting them there. And he has a pretty good idea who. His neighbor. Older guy. One of the only people nearby with dogs big enough to be chewing on bones like that. But here's the thing. He's never actually seen it happen. It's just a suspicion. So instead of going over there and starting drama over something he can't prove, he does something quietly brilliant. He starts saving them. Every single bone chunk he finds in his yard goes into a little storage container. Just sitting there. Waiting. Now, most of us would have forgotten about that container after a few weeks. Not this guy. Month after month, bone after bone, the collection grows. And he just lets it build.
No confrontation.
No passive-aggressive notes. Just patience. Then comes the day everything changes. He pulls into his driveway after work one afternoon, and as he's getting out of his car, he sees it happen in real time. Something gets lobbed over the shared fence from his neighbor's yard. The neighbor, and I love this detail, appears to be mowing his own lawn, finds a bone, and instead of, throwing it in the trash like a normal person, he just chucks it over the fence into our guy's yard. Bold. Disrespectful. And crucially witnessed. Now our narrator takes a moment here to describe himself, and I think this is my favorite part of the whole story. He says, and I'm quoting directly here, "I pride myself on being a reasonable person, but I can also be a petty, vindictive little asshole under the right circumstances." Ladies and gentlemen, we have found our people. He thinks it through, too. He could walk over and confront the guy. But what happens then? The neighbor might just stop. Or, and this is the risk, he gets defensive, decides he doesn't like being called out, and starts doing it even more just to be a jerk about it. Neither of those outcomes feels satisfying enough.
No.
He wants something better. Something proportional. Something poetic. So he waits until sundown. And then he goes outside with 5 years' worth of accumulated dog bones and starts throwing them back over the fence. All of them. He says it took about a half hour to get through the whole collection. Think about that for a second. A half hour. That is roughly 100 bone chunks raining down into this man's yard in the dark of night. One by one. Chunk by chunk. 5 years of petty inconvenience being returned, with interest, over the course of 30 quiet, deeply satisfying minutes. He describes it as cathartic. And I believe him completely. Now here's where the story gets its perfect ending. About a week later, both men happened to be leaving their homes at the same time. Our narrator mentions he'd only actually seen this neighbor maybe 2 or 3 times in the 5 years he'd lived there. The guy works night shifts, so their paths rarely cross. But on this particular day, there they are, face to face. And the neighbor's expression? Severely disgruntled. That's the phrase he uses. Severely disgruntled. Which, if you think about it, is exactly the face of a man who came home to find 100 dog bones scattered across his property and had absolutely no one to blame but himself. Because, what is he going to do? Walk over and say, "Hey, why did you throw all those bones in my yard?" He can't. The moment he opens that door, he has to admit what he's been doing for years. He'd be handing our guy the win on a silver platter. So he says nothing. And our narrator? He says he couldn't stop smiling. The neighbor never said a word about it. Not one. And since that day, not a single bone has ended up in the backyard. 5 years of mild, accumulated disrespect. Answered in one glorious half hour. And settled permanently, without a single argument. I love everything about this story. The patience, the planning, the execution, the timing, the complete and utter silence from the neighbor afterward, which honestly speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. This is petty revenge elevated to an art form. Now, I want to know what you think. Was this the perfect response, or should he have just knocked on the door and handled it directly? Personally, I think the direct approach would have given this guy a chance to be defensive and dismissive, and where's the fun in that? But maybe you see it differently. What would you have done in this situation? Drop a comment down below. I genuinely want to know. And if you enjoyed the story as much as I did, smash that subscribe button because I post stories like this every single day, and trust me, it only gets better from here.